This is CBC Television, Windsor 9.
As we look at Skydome in Toronto, it's 4:30 local time, and on this Sunday afternoon, we're all set for the showdown between Donovan Bailey and Michael Johnson.
The following is a live presentation of CBC Sports.
No man has ever run faster than this Canadian, unless it's a highly publicized trailblazer from the USA. Today, they'll settle their differences with a showdown. Yes, it's the climax to an afternoon full of confrontations. Confrontations from the elite of track and field. Like Heike Drechsler, former world and Olympic long jump champion, and Jackie Joyner-Kersee, 8 gold medals in both world and Olympic competition. In the high jump, long, lean, ancient wonder Patrick Schoberg against the fast-rising American, the Olympic champion from Atlanta, Charles Austin. As well as Jamaica's Michelle Freeman, who ran the second fastest hurdle times in 1996, topped only by her competitor today, the Olympic champion Ludmila Enqvist. It's Showdown Sunday at Skydome. 1-to-1 featuring the Bailey-Johnson match race. It's here, the Challenge of Champions. Well, it's a gray overcast day in southern Ontario, but even if it had been bright and sunny, the roof would have been closed here at Skydome. They're expecting a crowd of 45,000. Canadian flags abound. The crowd is substantially less than that, though, as we come to Toronto at this hour on a Sunday afternoon. This event has been called the savior of track and field in North America. It's been called trash sport. It's been called a heavyweight circus. It has been called a sideshow. Whatever, it is great theater. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Brian Williams. Welcome to Skydome and the Bailey-Johnson Showdown. Now, I've heard track purists complain and say, look, the distance is phony. It's 150 meters. The turns are too tight. That may be so, but there is no denying the fact the highlight race today features the 2 fastest men on the planet. An equally compelling story has been the preparation, promotion, and the track itself. It's taken on a life of its own. Let's take you back 24 hours. There's Dan Pfaff, Donovan's coach. They were furious arriving here yesterday. They had expected, there's his agent Ray Flynn, a 50-meter curve and a 100-meter straightaway. Instead, they found a 75-meter curve with a 75-meter straightaway. They also complained the turns were far too tight. And as a result, it was late last night before Donovan Bailey finally agreed to race here this afternoon. Now, the race itself, Bailey and Johnson, goes in about an hour and 10 minutes from now at 5:45 Eastern. In the next 30 minutes, we have special sit-down interviews with both Bailey and Johnson, and of course the undercard. And let's be frank, there have been major defections. Schoberg replacing Sotomayor from Cuba in the high jump, Lawrence Johnson replacing Bubka in the pole vault, Michelle Freeman replacing the great Gail Devers in the hurdles, and again the marquee event, Donovan Bailey and Michael Johnson, scheduled for 5:45 Eastern this afternoon. That is in about 1 hour and 10 minutes from now. You see the flags. The national rivalry, Canada against the United States, is really only big here in Canada. It is not much of a story south of the border. We will deal with that later in this 90-minute broadcast. During our coverage of the 1996 Atlanta Olympics, we missed Jeff Gowan. He was not able to be part of our crew as his wife Rona was ill. I'm happy to report Rona is doing much better. Jeff is with us this afternoon with Don Whitman. I'm here in the football play-by-play booth, which is on the west side of Skydome. Let's move to the south end. There's our baseball play-by-play booth. And there we find Jeff Gowan and Don Whitman. Jeff, good to have you back with us for another major event. Don, welcome. Let me ask you fellas, you've been covering track and field for 25, 30 years around the world. Are the concerns raised by the Bailey camp legitimate?
Well, Brian, I think they certainly are, because when Jeff and I spoke with Donovan Bailey on Thursday night at dinner, he was distinctly under the impression that it was a 50-meter curve, Jeff, and a 100-meter straightaway.
Absolutely, and that's the way it should have been negotiated, of course. Donovan wants to take advantage of the straightaway. He also wanted to take advantage of having lanes 7 and 8, the equivalent of lanes 7 and 8 on a 400-meter track. When he arrived at the Sky Dome yesterday, I was in the Sky Dome, and he was quite surprised that it was 75 and 75, and equally surprised that the lanes equal lanes 3 and 4 on an outdoor track, and this is not satisfactory for him, and he said this when I spoke with him.
Well, for confirmation that the configuration of the track was not to his liking, very evident when he arrived and spoke with Jeff Gowan yesterday.
So what do you think?
I think that the track was changed.
I know.
The track was changed drastically since.
So it's 75 and 75.
Yeah, we're supposed to start at the top of a curve into a straightaway, and this is crazy.
I know.
This is very crazy.
And negotiations continued late last night. Bailey's camp was attempting to add 11 meters at the finish line, taking away 11 meters from the start line, and that would have been more to his liking.
Oh, definitely. It would have given me a little more straightaway, but as great athletes have to do these days, they must cope with the conditions that they have to face. And we'll see how they do that later today.
So it will be a 75-meter curve and a 75-meter straightaway, Brian.
All right, Don and Jeff, we'll check back with you in just a minute for the first event of the day. We'll get to that shortly, but right now let's go down to the floor of Sky Dome. Mark Lee is working the floor this afternoon. There's Mark. Mark, I mentioned that Bailey didn't agree to race until late last night. He was supposed to hold a news conference about 2 hours ago at 2:30 local time. What happened?
Well, Brian, the news conference was canceled, and instead, Donovan Bailey issued a statement at about 1 o'clock Eastern to the media. In part, he said he was running under mental duress. The track in the Sky Dome is completely different from the track which I visualized in my training over and over every day since my training began for this race. He also said this: I have made requests to change the track back to the original specifications or to extend the finish line by 11 meters, as Don said, which have been denied by the race organizers, who have been deficient in every aspect of this ambitious event. So needless to say, Donovan Bailey is not happy. This was the scene at about 2:45, 3 hours to race time, as Michael Johnson arrived in a black limo in the bowels of the Sky Dome, wearing a headset and avoiding the media amid heavy security. Then, about 15 minutes later, in this white limo, Donovan Bailey arriving just outside his locker room and waiting to the last possible minute before making a very quick dash to the locker room without answering any reporters' questions. Earlier today, I spoke with the Toronto Star's Randy Starkman. He said he had a brief word with Donovan Bailey on the phone this morning, and Donovan said he did not sleep last night because of all of the confusion. Brian, back to you.
Mark, there's one question that begs to be raised, and I'm not talking about Donovan, I'm talking about his handlers. What in the heck have they been doing for the past couple of weeks if they're just finding out about a 75-75 configuration yesterday when they were expecting a 50-meter curve and a 100-meter straightaway? As I mentioned, 5 events on the undercard here this afternoon, ready for the first of the day. Once again, here are Don Whitman and Jeff Gowan.
Brian, the first event is the Paralympic 100, and there is the 1992 Barcelona and 1996 Atlanta Paralympic champion, 24-year-old Tony Volpentest of Mount Lake Terrace in Washington, and the silver medalist at both the 100 and 200-meter distance in Atlanta last summer from Australia, Neil Fuller, 27 years of age. Volpentest was born without hands or feet and only partially formed legs and arms. He has achieved speeds, however, that are impressive by any standards. Fuller lost his right leg as the result of a soccer accident. In battles between the two, Volpentest holds a 2-1 edge, and Jeff, right here, Fuller has visions of evening things at 2-2.
Yes, notice the cans filled with sand so that Volpentest has his shoulders a little higher in the start position. Way to a good start, and Fuller stumbled a little, but he's picking up now, Don.
Fuller in the lead. Volpentest is much stronger over the finishing stages of the race, and here comes Volpentest, and Volpentest is the winner in a time of 11:69. So the Olympic champion, who has goals of becoming the first amputee to run under 11 seconds, defeats Fuller 11:69 to 11:77.
Fuller a good start and leading up to about the 55 or 60 meter mark, but Vopentest kept his head, kept his form very well, and starts to move ahead in the late stages and eventually wins by about 3/4 of a meter. Very fine running, full of admiration for these men. It's what they have, not what they don't have, that matters.
And here he accepts his championship trophy, the Olympic champion who wants to claim gold in the year 2000 in Sydney, Australia, defeats the Australian Neil Fuller in the first event of the afternoon.
All right, that was on videotape. This is a live shot of Michael Johnson behind the main stage near the start of the 150-meter race. He is on the practice track. It's about an hour and 4 minutes until the showdown. Bailey Johnson. Up next, the first of our sit-down interviews. We will meet. There's Robbie O'Quinn, our makeup lady, getting Michael Johnson ready. We'll meet the Texan right after this.
Son. No, that'd be Birch. Once a driver, always a driver. Pontiac Sunfire, built for drivers.
There's nothing you can get into that Simon Eyes can't get out. Absolutely, positively nothing. New Simon Eyes self-dry car wash dries itself. Just wash and rinse. Water cascades off your car's paint, so there's virtually no wiping and no water spots. Simon Eyes. We've got as many ways to clean and shine your car as there are to get it dirty. Simon Eyes. Available exclusively at Canadian Tire.
We're pleased to introduce major new savings from Bell. Bell Real Plus Extra now offers 40% off the cost of all calls to your favorite overseas country. Not just calls to one number, but on every number you call in that country. And with savings like this, is it any wonder that so many people have switched back to Bell this year? Welcome to the new Bell.
One-to-One, Challenge of Champions on CBC. Brought to you by Pontiac. Pontiac, built for drivers. By Canadian Tire. By Air Canada. Ladies and gentlemen, prepare for takeoff. And by the new Bell. We'll earn your business.
Track, will there be two? Michael Johnson pours it on out of the starting blocks. Frankie Fredericks is going with him, but here comes Johnson off the turn. And he'll continue to pour it on all the way to the wire. He has Frankie Fredericks beaten. He has Otto Bolden beaten. What about the time? Will it be a world record? It is a world record for Michael Johnson.
And that, of course, was last summer in Atlanta. Let's pan up to our host area here. This is the football play-by-play booth on the west side of Skydome. We come in there. We saw Michael Johnson in action. We'll hear from Michael Johnson in just a matter of minutes. But about an hour and 45 minutes ago at 3 Eastern, the Blues Brothers, Dan Aykroyd, Jim Belushi, and John Goodman. There's John Goodman, entertained for the crowd here at Skydome.
Everybody, you know this one. Come on, baby, don't you want to go back to that same old place, sweet home, Chicago, Ontario. Yeah.
Sweet Home home Chicago, of course, it is sweet home Kingston, Ontario for Dan Aykroyd. Well, as promised, we have two special sit-down interviews for you this afternoon. We begin with a double gold medal winner from Atlanta. I'm talking about, of course, Texan Michael Johnson. And as you'll find out, a most interesting international star. Michael, you're the best-known sprinter on the planet. In your words, you're a two-time gold medalist at the Olympics, a world champion. Why run in this race?
There's three reasons why I'm running this race. One, I was challenged. And ever since I can remember, since I was a kid, if you challenged me, I took on the challenge as long as I believed in myself and that I could do it. Two, it's a great opportunity for me, financially as well as just as an athlete. It's a great opportunity for me. And three, it's a great opportunity for the sport, and the sport has been hurting here in the States, and this kind of thing can inject some positive energy in the track and field, I'm hoping.
I keep hearing that this race will not determine the world's fastest man. I mean, but let's be honest, 99.9% of the people watching believe it will. Do you believe this race will determine who's fastest?
If that's true, if 99% of the people, I'm glad to hear that, because I think that that's great for the sport. It's just not, I just don't feel that, I've been asked my opinion, and I don't feel that I'm in any position to say that this is and sanction this as the world's fastest man contest, or to say, I just don't feel that I'm in a position to do that. But I have no problem if that's what it's being called and that's what the public opinion is. I have no problem putting that on the line. I mean, that's not a problem for me.
I guess the reason I say it is this race probably wouldn't even have occurred had not the American media, for lack of a better description, announced following Atlanta that you were the world's fastest man.
I think to take it one step back before that, I think that this race would not have occurred had I not run 19.32 to make not only American media, but a lot of the media around the world say, wait, hold on. Who is really the fastest man in the world? That's what I believe.
No, not for a second does anyone blame you, but do you see that Canada being a smaller nation population-wise, maybe how the people feel that suddenly their sprinter is the winner of the 100 and now he's not getting the respect he deserves?
I don't get the respect that a lot of other athletes get, or a lot of other people get, or a lot of things that a lot of people said I should get from becoming, a double Olympic gold medalist. But, maybe you don't get that much. You get what you get. I don't get that unless people want to give it to me. And whatever Donovan gets, he has to learn, that's what you get. I've been doing this for 7 years. I know that I'm not going to get any more than what the fans want to give me, and I have to accept that, and I do accept that. And that's what Donovan has to accept, and the Canadian public has to accept that, you're going to get what you get, and there's nothing you can do about that.
Michael, speaking of respect, you said that you used to respect Donovan as both an athlete and as a man. Now you only respect him as an athlete. Do you dislike Donovan Bailey, and if so, why?
I think that some of the things that Donovan has said has been, disrespectful to me. And one thing that I've never done throughout all of this animosity and this Donovan Michael thing, one thing that I've never done is disrespected him as an athlete or as a person. Donovan is a 100-meter Olympic gold medalist. No one can take that away from him. He's a world champion. He's a world record holder. No one can take that away from him. Me, I am an Olympic double gold medalist, a history maker. I've done all of those things. I've been in this sport for 7 years and been consistently ranked #1. But he has not acknowledged that. He has tried to downplay my accomplishments and tried to act like I'm not deserving of those things. And I think that is disrespectful to me, and I don't take that lightly.
You've been described, again, as a control freak, a perfectionist, and tremendously focused. How would you describe Michael Johnson?
That's exactly who I am on the track. Exactly, to a T. I want to be in control of the race. I want to, I'm focused on exactly what I'm doing out there, and I'm a perfectionist. I want to run the perfect race every time I go out there. And I train really hard to make sure that I do that.
Michael, who's the fastest man in the world?
I am.
It is that simple. Look, I was in Atlanta. There's no question the American media did not give Donovan Bailey the respect he deserved either before or after the race. And let's face it, since the beginning of the modern Olympic movement in 1896, the title of the world's fastest man has gone to the winner of the 100 meters, The American media, of course, changed all of that last summer in Atlanta. One other point I would like to make here this afternoon, and we are going to hear from Donovan Bailey within about 10 minutes. Donovan keeps saying this isn't to decide the title of the world's fastest man. Well, 99.9% of the people believe it is. Look, if he hadn't been dissed by the American media in Atlanta, this race wouldn't have taken place in the first place. Once again, Don Whitman and Jeff Gowan.
The long jump competition features two of the outstanding female long jumpers over the last decade. The gold and silver medalist from 1988 in Seoul, Korea. Better known as a heptathlete, Jackie Joyner-Kersee of the United States. She was the gold medalist in the long jump in Korea. And Heike Drechsler, who first burst onto the international scene at the World Championships in 1983, finished in the silver medal position. The third jump for Jackie Joyner-Kersee. She fouled on her first try, 6.73 on her second. And this is a better jump, Jeff.
That looked a better jump. I think she's still searching for a little speed on the runway, Don, and as we know, it's so important to be fast on that runway and then strike that 20-centimeter board. Settles, drives up, gets on the board nicely, quite safe, now drives for height. Then the hitch kick and pushes the heels out. Not superb, Jackie Joyner-Kersee, but one of her best jumps.
6.79, and that is Jackie Joyner-Kersee's best jump of the competition. She has 3 jumps remaining, and this is the third jump for Heike Drechsler. 6.78 on her first attempt, 6.81 on her second. Her third try, she has a best this year of 7.02. That is a legal jump, and that appears to be almost the equivalent of her second attempt.
The third jumper all time with a jump of 7.48, which she established in 1988. She's a former world record holder in the 200 meters and the long jump, so she should have lots of pace. Her best this season, as Don said, 7.02. Nicely on the board, in fact, not giving much away at all. Now driving for height and hanging in the air, sticking the heels out. Typical hang-style jumper. That looked a better jump for her, as we see her settling and driving for height and then getting the heels out.
And on her third attempt, Heike Drechsler has a jump of 6.82. Just marginally better than her second attempt, but that puts her ahead of Jackie Joyner-Kersee. And in the final analysis, that was the winning jump for Drechsler, 6.82. The best that Kersee could do, 6.79.
And as we continue live from Toronto on this Saturday afternoon, up next, a conversation with the fastest man in the world, Canada's Donovan Bailey.
Don't just run. There's the fans, the media. Sometimes it feels like the whole world is watching.
We asked Donovan Bailey to switch antiperspirants and try Body Heat Activated Degree.
Body heat activated?
As your body heat rises, Degree releases extra protection when you need it most.
Degree really works.
Body Heat Activated Degree for an extra degree of protection.
Hey, there's more to my day than 9.84 seconds.
Donovan Bailey loves the 100. the Maple Leaf 100% all-meat Frankfurter. They aren't like typical all-beef hot dogs because all beef isn't always all meats. Maple Leaf 100s are 100% all meat and seasonings only, with no fillers, byproducts, or MSG. That's why Donovan loves finishing a 100. Maple Leaf 100s, because all beef isn't always all meat.
1-to-1 Challenge of Champions on CBC. Brought to you by Body Heat Activated Degree, proud sponsor of Donovan Bailey. And by Maple Leaf Meats, makers of Maple Leaf 100% all meat Frankfurters, because all beef isn't always all meat.
From Donovan Bailey in Atlanta to Bailey in his dressing room. He has the white shoes, making the fake basketball shots there in his dressing room. He appears very loose. He told Mark Lee he didn't sleep last night, but he was certainly relaxed yesterday. Sort of like a heavyweight fight, isn't it, folks, as we show you the dressing rooms? Did I say Saturday afternoon going to commercial? I do know that it is Sunday afternoon. Still to come, Donovan Bailey and Michael Johnson, the showdown. A few minutes ago, we had the interview with Michael Johnson. It is now time to hear from Canadian Donovan Bailey. I caught up with Bailey Thursday night here in Toronto.
You're the world's fastest man. You're an Olympic champion. You've got nothing to prove. Why run in this race?
I've already ran the fastest time ever recorded by a human. I mean, that's finished. That's something that's done. That can't be taken away from me unless someone else. That can never be taken away from me. Someone else can come and go faster. This race is definitely not going to prove that. But I think in a non-Olympic year, there's a lot of focus being placed on this 150, and I think it's definitely getting the marketing that we needed our sport to get. And you know, for the organizers of track competitions, it's their job now to get out there and roll with run with this. You know, no pun intended.
I remember being in Atlanta. You received very little respect from the American media prior to the race.
And after.
Not a lot after. Canadians, I think rightly so, were insulted. You've carried the shadow of Ben Johnson prior to Atlanta. Do you think in some way this race will change all that?
No, not at all. I don't think. I think no matter what, it's gonna be. There's gonna be something said. I mean, after this is finished, I think that I'll still remain the fastest man, and the 4 billion people that watched me break the world record in Atlanta will always remember where they were at that time. I mean, this race definitely is it's match competition. It's man on man. I mean, and I think it's again. I just think it's real good for the sport. I don't think anything's really going to change. I think other than the fact that I'll get recognized more for beating Michael Johnson.
You're extremely articulate. You got a great sense of humor, but it masks the fact that you're as focused as Michael Johnson or any athlete I've met. You don't like to give out that impression, but when I talk to people around you, you are indeed focused.
I'm competitive, and I think that. It's very essential for me to. This is my job now, so it's very essential for me to be disciplined and be organized in order to just maximize my abilities when I'm given the opportunity to do so. And I think this is one of these opportunities that I'm definitely ready for.
How do you feel coming to a country and people so appreciative of what you've done for your adopted country, the dignity, the glory you've brought this country? Do you ever stop and think about that?
No, not really, and I don't even look at it as so much as an adopted country. I mean, I think that I developed here into a man. I think that the roots that I have from Jamaica obviously enabled me to be very balanced because I grew up in 2 cultures. But my friends are here. I went to school here. My family. I mean, you know, so I never ever see them separately. I never ever see them separately. I mean, it's very obvious I was born in Jamaica, but I mean, I see myself, you know, 100% Canadian.
Michael Johnson told me he respects you as an athlete, but not as a man. Your thoughts on Michael Johnson?
Well, I mean, I guess I could say the same thing for him. I mean, I've always said that no one's ever questioned how good he is on the track, but it's very obvious that he's not very logical, and it doesn't really make a lot of sense when he speaks. You know, I mean, he wants something. He's like he's craving for something that's really not there. I mean, I said if he was a real man, he'd run the 100 meters. Then, you know, then he would have the ability to break the 100-meter world record. Then his speed would be measured over 100 meters. Then it's very obvious that he would be deserving of that title. Yes, he's very consistent. Yes, he wins all the time. Yes, all that yada yada yada. I mean, that's a lot of that. I described him as a spoiled kid. That you know, that the neighbor bought a bicycle, so he runs home and he cries to his mommy that he wants one too, although he doesn't deserve one.
Who's the fastest man in the world?
Oh, undoubtedly. I mean, oh man, that's not even a question. I mean, you know, undoubtedly myself. I mean, it wouldn't be even close. I mean, I'm just saying, the people that are there's myself, and then there's Frankie Fredericks, and then there's Otto Bolden, Leroy Burrell. I mean, the list goes on and on. Michael Johnson is off the list.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Classy representative of all Canadians, Michael Johnson, a classy and articulate representative of his nation. Both men say it's not to decide the world's fastest man, but come on, folks, let's be honest. Had the American media not dubbed Michael Johnson the American runner that won the 200 and 400, the world's fastest man and broken with tradition following Atlanta, this race would not be happening here this afternoon. There is Michael Johnson being rubbed down in his dressing room. I said it's a bit like a heavyweight fight. Let's switch and we go back to...
The internet is about the free exchange of ideas, being free to cross borders. And for a limited time, if you're a Bell Real Plus Extra customer, it's just plain free. Because we'll give you a free starter kit and 5 hours of free Simpatico internet access every month for a year. So if you're already a Bell Real Plus Extra customer, welcome to the internet. And if you're not, well, maybe now you know why thousands of people are switching back to Bell. Call now for your free connection.
The kids wanted to go out for some Mexican food. You decided to take them someplace really authentic. Finally, a minivan built for drivers. 180 horsepower V6, standard 4-wheel ABS, traction control. The rugged and sporty Pontiac Transport.
When competition comes to electricity in Ontario, when you have the power to choose your energy company and shop for the greatest value, best services, and most creative energy solutions, we believe the power of choice will lead you to a company that's led change for more than 90 years. A company ready to win your business in a new world of competition. Ontario Hydro, the power of Ontario, the power of change.
Some people think beer should be dark brown. Some say amber. A few state a preference for red or even clear. But guys who know their beer know that the true color of beer is golden. For all those folks, we happily announce that Molson Golden is back, brewed with pure spring water. That smooth taste is now even smoother. Golden, the true color of beer.
Housekeeping. Excuse me. Checking out?
Uh-huh.
We'll change the room.
Holiday Inn hotels are undergoing a $1 billion renovation to make every Holiday Inn as good as the best Holiday Inn.
Oh, you're back. Your toothbrush.
That means we're changing a lot more than the sheets. Holiday Inn, on the way.
Closed captioning of today's program is provided by Canadian Tire.
You know, I think it's going to be a good race, and you know, I think many people are saying, well, you know, Donovan's going to have a real tough time with Michael, but you know, when that crowd, when they say in lane 1 or whatever, Donovan Bailey, that crowd, that 60,000 people is going to go, they're going to go crazy.
Well, still about 40 minutes until the showdown between Donovan Bailey and Michael Johnson. If you're just joining us, I'm Brian Williams at Skydome in Toronto. We talked at the top of the show about the track. It has a 75-meter curve, a 75-meter straightaway. Bailey's camp was hoping for a breakdown of a 50 curve and a 100-meter straightaway. The one man here qualified to talk about this track is CBC's Jeff Gow.
I'm in the lane which will be used by Donovan Bailey in 24 hours' time in the race. The race, of course, being the 150 meters between Donovan and Michael Johnson of the United States. However, the design of the track has not been without controversy. I'm coming to the end of a 75 meters turn with a 75 meters straightaway in order to get to the finish. This is not what was expected by the Bailey camp. They expected a 50-meter turn and a 100-meter straightaway. I'm also in lanes which are the equivalent of lanes 3 and 4 on an outdoor 400 meters track. And this means that these turns are tight, which is to Johnson's advantage because he's a very experienced and very competent turn runner. However, as Dan Pfaff, Donovan's coach, said to me not 5 minutes ago, in sport we have to control the controllable variables and learn to cope with the uncontrollable ones. So this will be their challenge in negotiating these 150 meters. It should be a very, very close race indeed.
I think this makes it a closer race, but I'll repeat what I said earlier. You have to wonder not about Donovan Bailey, but his handlers. I mean, I'm surprised they haven't been checking with the manufacturer of this track or the manufacturers of this track on a daily basis to get the proper configuration. Still to come, women's 100 hurdles and the pole vault. Right now, the high jump once again, Don and Jeff.
Brian, the high jump took place earlier. Olympic champion Charles Austin came in at 2:15. He cleared that height. He cleared 2:20 on his first try. Here he is with his first attempt at 2:25. And for the Olympic champion who set the record in Atlanta with a clearance of 2:39, this was a piece of cake.
Yes, 2:25 for a 2:39 jumper, no problem at all, as Austin showed. Nice smooth approach run, good planted takeoff, drapes his body beautifully over the bar, and that's very easy at 2:25.
Patrick Sjöberg of Sweden was a replacement for world record holder Javier Sotomayor of Cuba, and he went out 3 failures at 2:25. So Austin with his first attempt now at 2 meters 30. Earlier this year on the 3rd of May, he had a victory at 2 meters 32. So he has been jumping very well, very consistently this year. His first major title in 1991 when he won the World Championship in Tokyo.
Yes, nice clearance. Nice clearance for Charles. World indoor champion, Olympic champion, Olympic record holder. Good smooth, good takeoff, driving for height first, then timing the removal of his body parts over the bar.
However, 2:30 was the best that Charles Austin could do. He had 3 consecutive failures at 2:35, and as you see, 3 consecutive failures for Sjöberg at 2:25. So the 1-to-1 challenge champion, Charles Austin of the United States.
And as I mentioned, still to come, of course, it's the showdown between Donovan Bailey and Michael Johnson, also the pole vault. Up next, though, it is the women's 100-meter hurdles featuring Michelle Freeman from Jamaica stepping in for the American star Gail Devers. Again, there have been several withdrawals from the undercard in the past 5 or 6 days. On the left, it's Freeman, and on the right, Ludmila Enquist, now from Sweden. The women's hurdles up next when we return live to Toronto.
You've never seen anything like it, and it's headed for Canadian Tire. More selection, more parts for more makes and models of cars and light trucks, more quality brand names like Certified Brakes, Monroe Shocks, and TRW suspension parts. So now, you'll get the right parts when you need them at guaranteed low prices. Canadian Tire, Canada's auto parts store, made better.
Nagano 98. Sydney 2000. 4. Ladies and gentlemen, prepare for takeoff. Air Canada, official airline of Canada's Olympic team.
Challenge of Champions on CBC. Brought to you by Molson Canadian. And by Air Canada, official airline of Canada's Olympic team.
Well, there's a shot of Windows Restaurant. Officials from the 1999 Pan Am Games in Winnipeg here this afternoon with their mascot. Of course, CBC and TSN, the sports network, will provide joint coverage of the Pan Am Games when they come to Winnipeg. Donovan Bailey, still about 33 minutes until he will get into the blocks and race against Michael Johnson. Also still to come is the men's pole vault this afternoon and live coverage of the women's hurdles. Bailey telling Mark Lee he didn't get any sleep last night. Upset about the track configuration. In fact, it wasn't until about 10:30 Toronto time last night that Donovan Bailey even agreed to race here this afternoon. Let's bring in Jeff Gowan and Don Whitman as we're ready for live coverage of the women's hurdles. Jeff Gowan, I want to ask you, both Bailey and Johnson saying to me in those interviews that this will not decide the world's fastest man title. Do you agree that had the controversy not arisen in Atlanta, had the American media not dubbed Johnson the world's fastest man, this race probably never would have taken place at all?
I would agree it would not have taken place, Brian, and Donovan Bailey is quite correct. The world's fastest human is traditionally associated with the winner of the 100 meters Olympic Games gold medalist. If we look at the analysis of the 100 meters, we know that in the 10-meter sections and calculating the meters per second, Bailey ran 12.1 meters per second at the 60-meter mark. You don't get any faster once you've gone past about 70 or 80 meters, and therefore there's no need to run beyond 100 meters if you really want to assess the world's fastest human.
Jeff, you made an interesting comment about the world's fastest human and the problems the Americans might have with Donovan Bailey holding that title. They haven't won an Olympic gold medal in the 100 meters since 1988, and that was because Carl Lewis replaced the disqualified Ben Johnson.
Right, and this has been traditionally the domain of the Americans. They've got fine sprinters, of course, 100, 200 and 400. Nobody's questioning Michael Johnson's ability at 200 and 400, absolutely outstanding, but we're talking about the world's fastest human, and that is the 100-meter winner, because that's the race in which the fastest times, the fastest number of meters per second are achieved. Bailey's 12.1 being very, very fast indeed.
All right, Jeff, there you see Donovan Bailey with his coach Dan Pfaff, Mark Lindsay, one of the trainers, his therapist. The large roar that the audience at home heard was when Donovan Bailey and Dan Pfaff were flashed up on the giant jumbo screen here at Skydome. We're all set for the women's hurdles. Once again, Don and Jeff.
Dan Pfaff conferring with Donovan Bailey, some instructions perhaps, and just trying to reassure him that the curve should be no problem. As a matter of fact, Pfaff was saying that he one day thinks that Donovan Bailey could be an outstanding 200-meter runner. It is Ludmila Enquist of Sweden against Michelle Freeman of Jamaica in the 100-meter hurdles. As again we see Pfaff and Bailey. Bailey looking very relaxed for a man who probably didn't get a great deal of sleep last evening. He would feel much more comfortable if the starting blocks were in this position on the 100-meter straightaway. And this is for the 100-meter hurdles with Freeman and Enquist awaiting starting instructions.
This, I think, Don, quite fascinating, because on the top of the picture in the red lane, Ludmila Enquist, formerly Lyudmila Narozilenko of the Soviet Union, who married her Swedish coach and now is a Swedish citizen and was the first woman in winning the Olympic Games to win a gold medal for Sweden, which she did in Atlanta, of course. And in the blue lane, Michelle Freeman, who is a faster runner, a better sprinter than Enquist, but not technically as good in clearing the hurdle. So it's going to be a fascinating challenge here to see if the better hurdler, but the slightly slower sprinter, can overcome the faster sprinter, but the slightly less effective hurdler. Enquist has said as we see her taking her tracksuit bottoms off, that at 33 she doesn't think she has much hope of improving her speed, but she thinks she can still perhaps bring about slight improvements in her hurdling technique. And she's a good hurdler, the Olympic champion. Michelle Freeman, the Commonwealth Games champion in 1994, a faster runner, recovering from a hamstring injury 3 weeks ago, so we hope that holds up very well. But it should be an interesting race, and I hope we can get some slow motion to see the difference between takeoff times and touchdown times over each hurdler. Here on the left, the sprinter hurdler, and on the right, the hurdler sprinter, and the Olympic champion, Ludmilla Enquist of Sweden.
Michelle Freeman, the world indoor champion in Paris over the 60-meter hurdles. They will be clearing 10 flights of hurdles, and these hurdles are 0.840 meters in height.
Or 2 feet 9, whichever you prefer.
On your marks.
The official starter is Jackie Downing of London, Ontario.
She has got a very responsible job, particularly later on in the 150, of course. But the job of any good starter is to ensure that the athletes get a fair start. And this requires discipline from the starter, and particularly, of course, discipline from the athletes. And since a lot of this crowd are not track and field aficionados, they'll have to be very careful that the noise is not a distracting factor.
IAAF rules apply, so a second false start would mean disqualification.
So they're making their final preparations now. They will take 8 strides to the first hurdle, 3 lightning fast strides between, and then well enough away from the hurdle at takeoff to enable them to pick up the lead leg with plenty of time and room to spare so that they can keep low in their clearance. False start by Enquist, a little eager. That's 1 gone, 1 to go. I thought there the starter, if I could be a little bit positively critical, was a little incisive in her set rather than being a little softer and more gentle. Now Ludmilla is under some pressure. She's at a disadvantage because if she goes again, her trip has been a total waste of time.
Number 1, Terry.
A world best bonus will go to the athlete who can exceed 12.22 seconds. This is just outside the world outdoor record of 12.21. They don't run 100-meter hurdles indoors normally. They don't do it at the World Indoor Championships or on the indoor circuit. So a 12.22 clocking for either of these 2 runners, Ludmilla Enquist of Sweden, who has already been charged with a false start, or Michelle Freeman of Jamaica, would result in a substantial cash reward.
On your mark.
So now a regathering as they move in for their second attempt to get this race underway. Blowing out the tension. Relaxing. Very interestingly, letting Ludmilla Enquist get in the position first so that she, in a sense, Freeman, in a sense, is in control of the Olympic champion. And the Olympic champion now, of course, conscious that she must not get a second false start.
Seemed to be a little movement at the start line, and getting away very quickly is Michelle Freeman. Enquist trying to make up the ground, but with 3 hurdles remaining, it is Freeman. Here comes Enquist. Enquist very strong at the finish, and she wins in 12.83. Tremendous effort over the final 3 hurdles by Enquist, and she was able to make up the difference as Freeman came very quickly out of the starting blocks and appeared at the midpoint of the race to have it under control.
That is quite incredible. Enquist got a dreadful start, literally stumbled at about the 4th stride and was right out of it over the first 4 flights. She then seemed to regather herself, got in her rhythm, got on balance, and hurdled superbly over the last 3 flights. I would have bet any money that she would not have beaten Michelle Freeman at the halfway point of this race. She had an awful start, probably reflecting on her false start charge, but she recovered superbly, and eventually her superior hurdling won the day. Watch this. They were neither of them really steady at the start. Freeman slightly ahead here because of Enquist's hesitation and stumbling. And here, look at the takeoff point. Freeman away now, Enquist now. But now she begins to get back into her rhythm as Freeman begins to struggle a little bit and tense up around the shoulders, but she still has a half-meter lead. Now Enquist begins to really get in her rhythm and move lightning fast strides in between. Now she's level, now she's beyond, gets down quickly, and she's into the finish. A remarkable recovery by the Olympic champion, and good, strong running by Michelle Freeman. There was Enquist's stumble. Not very good clearance over the first two. Freeman running very well indeed, and a comfortable half-meter ahead. Now Enquist beginning to get things together. And the taller athlete, 5'8.5" as opposed to 5'7", now beginning to catch up and feel that there is a chance here, and a tremendous leveling as she comes off that last hurdle and gets into the finish. Remarkable 100-meter hurdles.
Tremendous surge by Enquist at the second last hurdle. It almost appeared, Jeff, as though she flew past Freeman at that point.
There we see their concentration. Concentrating on their own lane, concentrating on keeping low over those hurdles, sprinting hard in between. And now Enquist beginning to come on, and the Olympic champion shows her quality to take victory in this 100-meter showdown.
Great race in the women's hurdles. About 22 minutes to go until Michael Johnson and Donovan Bailey face off in the showdown here at Skydome in Toronto. And still to come on this Sunday afternoon, we have the men's pole vault. It's Donovan Bailey and Michael Johnson, the one-on-one showdown, again coming up in about 20 minutes from now. You're watching live coverage from Skydome in Toronto on CBC. Donovan is out. The crowd has acknowledged his presence.
We're pleased to introduce major new savings from Bell. Bell Real Plus Extra now offers 40% off the cost of all calls to your favorite overseas country. Not just calls to one number, but on every number you call in that country. And with savings like this, is it any wonder that so many people have switched back to Bell this year? Welcome to the new Bell.
Don't just run. They're the fans, the media. Sometimes it feels like the whole world is watching.
We asked Donovan Bailey to switch antiperspirants and try body heat activated Degree.
Body heat activated?
As your body heat rises, Degree releases extra protection when you need it most.
Degree really works.
Body heat activated Degree for an extra degree of protection.
Hey, there's more to my day than 9.84 seconds.
Donovan Bailey loves the 100. The Maple Leaf 100% all-meat Frankfurter. They aren't like typical all-beef hot dogs because all beef isn't always all meats. Maple Leaf 100s are 100% all meat and seasonings only, with no fillers, byproducts, or MSG. That's why Donovan loves finishing a 100. Maple Leaf 100s, because all beef isn't always all meat.
Back live in Toronto, they hope for a crowd of about 45,000. I would estimate the crowd right now at about 38,000. And they, of course, here this afternoon to see Donovan Bailey and Michael Johnson. Call it a lack of a respect from the American media, or maybe the American media seeking a hometown hero. Whatever. When the American media didn't recognize Donovan Bailey following Atlanta, it's set today in motion, and here's CBC's Mark Lee.
Traditionally, the winner of the Olympic 100 meters and world record holder is considered the world's fastest man. Donovan Bailey fits the bill on both accounts.
The Olympic Games return to America on NBC.
South of the Canadian border, NBC created a different perspective. Olympic and world 200 and 400 meter champion Michael Johnson believes the fastest man title is his domain.
I'm Michael Johnson, the fastest man alive, and we've got it.
A media maelstrom developed, and the argument for bragging rights was joined.
the ruler of the sprint world was apparent. Trumpeted Canadian headlines. How could the Americans think otherwise? To settle the issue, the two principals were brought together, heavyweight fight style, to compete in a match race, 1-to-1.
When I came home after the Olympic Games, I told you that this race would happen and it would be on my terms. I'm here now, and it's going to happen in May, so I'm really looking forward to taking on my man here.
How this all came about, I guess, was because of my performance at the Olympics in the 200 meters, and several people decided that I was the fastest man in the world.
The media has always spotlighted confrontations. There's been man against machine in a recent struggle. Man against animal, as Jesse Owens raced in a series of exhibitions. And of course, man against woman, as Bobby Riggs was put in his place by Billie Jean King. Former Olympic runner Bruce Kidd, a Toronto social scientist, understands confrontation's appeal.
It's a complete competition. I mean, you can't hide. You can't go away. It's you against the next guy. There's no ands, ifs, or buts. There's no cop-outs. It's the ultimate in competition.
And it's rapidly become an expression of nationalism, each athlete wrapped up in earning respect for self and homeland.
He's a major inspiration for me and to all Canadians all over.
It's a time when we're not doing so well in other competitions. When we lost the Canada Cup last fall to the Americans in hockey, which we should have won easily. So there's a little bit of payback time here.
Now the pre-fight hype is over. Insults and ill feelings have festered. It's time to step forward to settle this dispute.
Well, there's Michael Johnson on the track. There's no question there is an element of nationalism involved in this 150-meter race, especially in this country here this afternoon. It's about 5:28 Eastern. The race going in about 17 minutes from now.
Housekeeping. Excuse me. Checking out? Uh-huh. We'll change the room.
Holiday Inn hotels are undergoing a $1 billion renovation to make every Holiday Inn as good as the best Holiday Inn.
Oh, you're back. Your toothbrush.
That means we're changing a lot more than the sheets. Holiday Inn, on the way.
Nagano 98. Sydney 2000. Canada. Flying further. Flying faster. Flying higher than ever before. Ladies and gentlemen, prepare for takeoff. Air Canada, official airline of Canada's Olympic team.
Well, the final event between the 100, or before the 150-meter showdown between Bailey and Johnson is the pole vault. Don Whitman and Jeff Gowan, how about bringing us up to date?
Brian, they entered the competition at 5:60. Both Okert Brits and Lawrence Johnson cleared at 5:60, 5:75. The second attempt at 5:90 for Brits. He's over. Okert Brits, only the third man in history to ever vault 6 meters, is over at 5:90.
And number 2 all time behind the great Bubka, of course, and he's naturally quite delighted at that effort. He told us in an interview that we did with him yesterday that he knows when he's got a good vault on, when he gets a tremendous plant of that pole in the vaulting box. He also said that the approach run and the speed in the approach run is very important, and he had good speed on that approach run there, and that's what resulted in a second attempt clearance at 590.
He has a fanatical obsession to rule this event. His dream is to break the world record 35 times, like Bubka, who was unable to compete here because of injury.
Good vaulting at 590 for the South African. He's an extreme sport man. He loves to water ski. He loves to take risks. That was a good plant, curls the feet up to the top of the pole and then times his pike over the bar and just gets clear with those arms. Good vaulting, 590 Orchid Brits.
He has another vision, Jeff. Someday clearing 6 meters 20, 6 meters 30 eventually.
6 feet 5 inches tall. He would like the poles to be lighter so that he can run faster down the runway, but he'll be pleased with that 590 effort.
And one of the biggest problems that pole vaulters do have is traveling with their poles, and when you have to journey from South Africa, it becomes an even greater problem. Orchid Brits successfully over, Brian, at 590.
And on the track is Michael Johnson from Dallas, Texas. We'll return live to Toronto right after this.
The internet is about the free exchange of ideas, being free to cross borders. And for a limited time, if you're a Bell Real Plus Extra customer, it's just plain free. Because we'll give you a free starter kit and 5 hours of free simpatico internet access every month for a year. So if you're already a Bell Real Plus Extra customer, welcome to the internet. And if you're not, well, maybe now you know why thousands of people are switching back to Bell. Call now for your free connection.
South and appears to be picking up speed.
Residents are advised to reroute to 18. Anyone in the immediate vicinity.
We've now learned that Fred is within visual range at current speed.
Hey, Fred. Morning, Bob.
The new Pontiac Grand Prix GTP V6 supercharged wide track. Built for drivers.
Just over 10 minutes until the 150-meter showdown between Donovan Bailey and Michael Johnson. As I said, they'd expected a crowd of about 45,000 here this afternoon. It is substantially less than that. I would guess the crowd at about 38,000. Donovan Bailey is out. Donovan Bailey, if you're just joining us, did not sleep well last night. Michael Johnson apparently not bothered at all by the track configuration. We have just a minute now to talk with Don Whitman and Jeff Gowan. Let me bring Don and Jeff in here this afternoon. But before we do, hey, Whit, you had nice hair. This was 1976 in Montreal. Don Whitman and Jeff Gowan. Jeff, let me ask you, you're a former head of the Coaching Association of Canada. You've coached. What about the distractions for Donovan Bailey? I mean, he says he didn't sleep last night. You know, Donovan in the past has used that sort of, you know, I like being the underdog, and then he comes out like a shot. What do you think?
Well, in the ideal preparation phase, that certainly would be contraindicated. He shouldn't be bothering about things like this. As you said earlier in the program, his handlers should have handled all of this. The details should have been checked meticulously. There's really no excuse from this. There's obviously been some very serious communication breakdown, and some of that pressure has clearly shifted onto Donovan's shoulders, and that does not enhance his preparation. On the other hand, he's a man who likes intense competition, and he may be overcome this, and we'll see that very shortly.
Don Whitman, you've called so many of these. You were out here yesterday. You've been down on the track. Talk to us about, and for people that don't watch track and field, I mean, it may be obvious, but explain the importance of the curve and the fact they're starting on a curve.
Well, Donovan Bailey is the taller athlete. He's the longer striding athlete. Centrifugal force through the curve, and Jeff, you are the expert. You perhaps can correct me on this, but I would think that Donovan Bailey would have more difficulty dealing with that element than Michael Johnson. Johnson is noted as an exceptional turn runner, and this is where Bailey may have some difficulties, thus the reason for his concern about the 75-meter curve rather than the 50-meter curve.
I think it's very interesting, Brian, that in Atlanta, Johnson ran 10.12 for the first 100 meters, all of that round a curve, and he ran that out of lane 3. This is the equivalent of lane 3 and 4 here, and he's in lane 4, so it should be slightly easier for him, and he's likely to go through that 100 meters around 10.1 or so. Now, Donovan may run it very quickly indeed, but it's the amount of energy he expends on the curve trying to cope with the bend.
All right, one quick question, Jeff. We have to go to commercial. What about the heat? It's very hot in here today. Is that a factor?
No, that's no problem at all. They love it. The sprinters like hot weather, so that they can be very loose. Yeah, Donovan says the hotter the better, and a bit of humidity is great too.
All right, conditions are ideal. Stay with us. We'll return live to Toronto. This is our final commercial break, and then we will take you through the pre-race festivities and the race itself with uninterrupted coverage. Donovan Bailey is out on the track. He's sitting talking to his coach, Dan Pfaff. Also out is Michael Johnson. The race is up next. Back to Toronto after this.
I drive a lot, so for my brake work, I trust Canadian Tire. They do almost 500,000 brake jobs a year using only top-quality certified brake parts. Well, John, my mechanic, gave me some important tips. He said Canadian Tire will give me a lifetime warranty on brake pads and shoes, and they'll inspect my brakes for free to make sure they're in good working order. Well, that's important to me because I'm a cautious driver. And I think John sensed that too.
Canadian Tire. Everyday low prices made better.
Well, Okert Brits cleared at 590. Lawrence Johnson failed 3 tries at 590. And now Okert Brits is going to attempt 6:15, which would be a world record. His first try at this height. He has vision someday of being a world record holder. Not this time. He has 2 attempts remaining at 6:15, and he is disappointed.
For the people who know a little bit about pole vaulting, he was holding that pole at 5 meters 5. It's a pole which is a 205 to 215 pound pole, and Brits himself weighs 200 pounds. So it's important to remember that when Bubka jumps, he holds the pole at 5 meters 18 and runs very fast down the runway, and Okert knows that that's what he needs. Plenty of pace on the runway, a lighter pole to make that pace possible, and holding above 5 meters. If he can do that, the world record may be his. That was not to be the case on this occasion.
Brits was telling us that he knows he's going to have a good jump the moment the pole thunks into the vaulting box.
Yes, he just has all those sensations. He knows if he splits that vaulting box nice and cleanly, and he's had a good fast approach run, an accurate approach run, then he's going to get a good vault, and all he's got to do then is perform some gymnastic activities on that pole and be in a position with his feet at the top of the pole when the pole releases its energy. In other words, when it straightens up. The great advantage of a vaulter being able to use a heavy pole is that a heavy pole will release the energy very quickly. And if the vault is in the right position on the pole, it will certainly assist him. On the other hand, if the vaulter's not capable of bending that heavy pole, then he can find himself in all sorts of trouble and in some grotesque positions in midair, hoping like mad that he'll land safely in the landing area.
He was inspired to become a pole vaulter when he saw Sergei Bubka clear 6.03 when he was just 13 years of age. Michael Johnson focusing on the task at hand, the 150-meter battle against Canada's Donovan Bailey. 2 phenomenal athletes, regardless of the outcome of their 150-meter match race. Nobody can take away the Olympic gold medal they claimed last summer in Atlanta, or the world records they set in the process. A world record is on the mind of Okert Brits in the pole vault. He didn't really please his family when he saw Budka vault that 6.03 when he was 13, and went out into the backyard and built a vaulting pit out of his parents' bed, blankets, and some bamboo.
Yes, and his father, who was a vaulter himself, didn't really let Okert know that he was a vaulter because he wasn't particularly keen for him to take up pole vaulting. Being in South Africa, of course, he wanted him to play rugby. But Okert decided to try this out. He has a younger brother who was a 5'50" pole vaulter, but who didn't stay in pole vaulting as long as Okert has. And here is his second attempt at 6 meters 15. You'll see this concentration, this 6'5", 200 pounds frame, trying to run down this runway very fast but under control to execute a beautifully efficient plant, and then to get those feet up to the top of the pole and wait patiently until the energy is released, and then hopefully clear that bar at 6 meters 15. The tape just being rechecked because he needs to have a very, very firm grip with that top hand, which he's holding at around 5 meters.
The crowd here at Skydome continuing to react to the warm-up performances of Donovan Bailey and Michael Johnson.
Bailey's 100 meters Olympic final has just been flashed on the scoreboard, and now we're seeing Johnson's 19.23 world record in the 200 running out of lane 3, as I said earlier on, and therefore well able to handle this turn.
These are the two main participants in the Skydome show. But the focus at the moment is on the pole vault runway, a second attempt at a world record for Okert Brits. He does not have to contend with winds here in the Skydome, something he found very difficult for those who watched the Commonwealth Games in Victoria in 1994. A major disappointment for Okert Brits, who came into that competition as a heavy favorite.
Confessed to us that he perhaps took it too lightly, didn't really account for the fact that these winds were swirling winds, came into the competition too late, and no heighting. Here is his second attempt. Look at the focus. Self-talk, concentration. Regardless of what's going on around him, he's got to concentrate on that runway, go down there fast, execute a beautiful plant, and drive in at the plant, and then get those feet up to the top of the pole. Here he goes.
He encourages the crowd to react with rhythmic applause. Again, a failure at a world record. His second attempt, 1 try left.
And as we've said many times in covering pole vaulting, perhaps anticipated the bar and reached for it with his feet instead of being patient, and he's saying, I've had enough. I don't think I have it in me today, but one day it will come.
Yes, even though he has 1 try remaining, he has decided to pass his third and final attempt at 6:15. Okert Brits in the 1-to-1 challenge, defeating Lawrence Johnson of the United States. Brits successfully clearing 5 meters 90.
Perhaps he didn't have a third attempt, Donald, because he was wanting to watch the 150.
Well, the 150 is the next event. Donovan Bailey readjusting his starting blocks. Now, Jeff, as we take a look at the starting blocks, he is trying to get the proper angle for the curve that they will run through.
On a tangent to the curve, so that in fact he runs the minimal possible distance. They're trying to save centimeters here because it may be as close as that at the finish. We see the speaker in the block so that they can hear very clearly the starter's commands. In this race, of course, they're so close together on the stagger that there's no problem, but in a 200 or 400 outdoor race, the stagger means that the outside lanes are so far away from the actual start line that they need to have microphones, speakers in their blocks rather, so that they have an equal chance of hearing the starter's commands. And let us remember that the starter's job is to ensure a fair start.
I don't think there's any doubt who the crowd favorite is here at Skydome. Right now, let's go down to field level. Here's Mark Lee.
Thank you, Don. I'm holding one of the shoes, one of the second pair of shoes that Donovan Bailey has had specially made for him. This is the shoe he'll be wearing today. It weighs only 4 ounces. The black material here you can see is paper thin. It is parachute material. 4 ounces. A regular running shoe weighs about 13 ounces. You can see the special ceramic spikes that have been made. These help make them so much lighter. The conventional spikes are twice as heavy. So this is the shoe that will carry Donovan Bailey in his race today against Michael Johnson.
Yes, that shoe weighs about 30% less than the shoes he wore when he won the gold medal and set the world record with a time of 9:8.4 in Atlanta. Now, there is word that Donovan Bailey, in training for this race, broke that world record down in Austin, Texas. He has indicated that he might surprise Michael Johnson here at Skydome. If he is to surprise Johnson, I would have to think it would be his performance through the turn.
He's got to run well through the turn and not utilize too much energy in order to keep close to the inside of his lane. And then from the 100-meter mark onward, he's got to relax and keep his range and rhythm going and focus exclusively on his own lane. He cannot afford to deflect in any way, to be bothered about what Michael Johnson's doing. And of course the reverse occurs equally for Michael Johnson. It's fairly small stagger, so he's always there, but Donovan must not be concentrating on what Michael's doing. He must concentrate on running a smooth turn, coming through that transition from turn to straightaway very smoothly. And once he gets beyond the 100, his familiar territory, he's got to range out, keep his rhythm, and above all else, relax. And relax doesn't mean slow down. It means not fight for distance, not fight for stride rate or stride length. Any running race is a product, any sprint race is a product of stride length and stride frequency. Donovan has the greater stride length. Johnson has a very high stride frequency, but is very smooth indeed.
Well, there is a most expectant hush when runners approach the start line. Let's watch and listen here at Skydome. Chanting Donovan Bailey's name.
The person you have to feel for right now, Donald, as well as the pressure on these athletes, is the pressure on the starter. Because her job is to ensure that the start is a fair one. And with this noise, it's going to be difficult not to have distractions. So I hope somebody on the PA system asks for quietness in the Skydome.
Two men, Michael Johnson, Olympic 200-meter champion, world record holder. Donovan Bailey, Olympic 100-meter champion, world record holder, both trying to run faster than the clock can tick. Johnson on the outside. Bailey with a great start running through the turn in the lead. Now they race towards the finish. Johnson pulls up. Bailey's going to win it. Donovan Bailey looks back at the 100-meter mark. Johnson pulled up. The time 15 seconds flat. Donovan Bailey, Olympic champion, world record holder. He became a world champion in 1995 in Gothenburg, Sweden. Reconfirmed the fact he was the fastest man in the world in Atlanta last summer, and has again proven his status as the world's fastest man.
Very disappointing for Michael Johnson, who was behind coming into the straightaway. In my judgment, he would still have been behind at the finish, but it's still exceptionally disappointing when he suffers a pull, probably a hamstring strain. But Donovan Bailey, the victor, it doesn't change his fastest human status at all. He had that anyway, but it does confirm his ability to run 150 meters on a fairly tight turn indoor track.
The remarkable aspect of his race, in my opinion, Jeff, was the way he ran the turn.
Ran the turn very well. He probably lost a lot of energy running that turn because the time, as I remember it, was 15 seconds. But he eased off at the end anyway, recognizing that he couldn't sense that Johnson's presence was close at all. And there we see Michael Johnson receiving some attention as Bailey celebrates with his fans and close admirers. Dan Pfaff, his coach. Thanks, coach, for ensuring that things went well. A lot of pressure off this young man's shoulders. Very high expectations in this crowd for a Canadian victory.
And in addition to reconfirming his status as the world's fastest man, he is $1 million.
Well, let's watch this very carefully. We'll see a mark when they get to the 50. Bailey's up on Johnson's shoulder at this point, and at 50 is just slightly ahead, and now he's a full meter clear, and it's at this point that Johnson begins to ease off. He senses he's got this pull. Bailey powering away, beginning perhaps to tighten a little bit in the shoulders, but well ahead and coming through the 150-meter mark, the victor. Looking back to see where Johnson was because he couldn't sense his presence any longer. Good start by Donovan. Little wide at this point now, honing in on the inside of the lane without transgressing, of course. Johnson showing his good turn running ability, but he's down coming off the turn. And this is where he senses that things are wrong, begins to feel the greater effects of this muscle pull, and limps away and decides there's no point in trying to continue. Very disheartening for him. A good victory for Donovan Bailey, but it would have been better still if both athletes had finished.
Both athletes were guaranteed $500,000 for participating. Michael Johnson all week had suggested they put the entire $2 million on the line. The $500,000 each runner was guaranteed, plus the $1 million that would go to the winner. Well, Michael Johnson is fortunate that did not occur today because Donovan Bailey would have claimed the $2 million prize. As it is, he is $1,500,000 richer, and if reconfirmation was required, it occurred right here at Skydome as Donovan Bailey accepts a congratulatory kiss from his daughter, the world's fastest man without any question. Tremendous numbers of media in attendance to watch this race. About 600 radio, television, and print journalists from around the world in attendance, as this race was also beamed live via television around the world.
You could see the stress on the ankles and feet and lower limbs as they come round those turns at speed and trying to stay close in, and this is where Johnson felt the twitch. I think it's in the left leg, but he began to hobble. Bailey, oblivious of all of this, showing great range, relaxation, working with those long strides and that high stride cadence, around 4.5 strides a second. Great range in the arms, powering his way through, but trying to stay relaxed as Johnson fades into the distance as a result of that pull. Now he senses nobody's there, has a quick look back to see what's happened, recognizes that victory is his, and hence the celebrations.
And Bailey, of course, is being mobbed by the media. Our Mark Lee is down there trying to get close to him.
That's right, Don. I'm in this melee here with Donovan Bailey. Donovan, we're live on CBC. Congratulations. What do you feel was accomplished here today?
Well,
what do you think was accomplished here today, Donovan?
Well, okay, Mark, please come up here. Here, please, Mark. Okay, go.
Okay, Donovan, go ahead. I know there's a lot of confusion here. Can you put your thoughts into perspective after this race?
There was never any doubt in my mind that I was the fastest man on the planet, and this just proved it. I mean, they said I couldn't run a corner, but I always said this is exposing Michael Johnson in his weaknesses in his race. This is just preparation for me to run a couple of twos this year, and I plan on meeting him in his event.
You came out of the turn, you took the lead, you were leaving him 2/3 of the way through the race when he pulled up. Are you disappointed he pulled up, that he didn't finish?
He didn't pull up, he's a chicken. He didn't pull up at all, he's just a chicken. He's afraid to lose. I think what he should do is we should run this race over again so he can kick his ass one more time.
Donovan, you said you ran under duress. How tough was it going into this race considering the configuration?
Well, you know what? The bottom line was I had to concentrate on what it is I was given. I think that I support events like this happening. I just think that organizers should have some knowledge of track and field and respect us as athletes.
Olympic champion and still the world's fastest man.
Yes, I am.
Congratulations. Let's go back to Brian.
Mark Lee, once again, a very classy young man, brings a nation to its feet. Donovan Bailey defeats Michael Johnson. I'll tell you what, I was proud in Atlanta, and I'm sure I speak for Canadians this afternoon from coast to coast. There is great pride here in this building. A tremendous performance by Donovan Bailey as Michael Johnson pulls up. Bailey was ahead when Johnson pulled up. You heard Bailey say, and I'm quoting, he was chicken, he was not hurt. We have a lot more to come. Mark Lee is down on the floor, and we'll talk to Michael Johnson when we return live to Toronto right after this.
1-to-1 Challenge of Champions on CBC. Brought to you by Body Heat Activated Degree, proud sponsor of Donovan Bailey. And by Maple Leaf Meats, makers of Maple Leaf 100% all meat frankfurters, because all beef isn't always all meat.
You don't just run. There's the fans, the media. Sometimes it feels like the whole world is watching.
We asked Donovan Bailey to switch antiperspirants and try Body Heat Activated Degree.
Body Heat Activated?
As your body heat rises, Degree releases extra protection when you need it most.
Degree really works.
Body Heat Activated Degree for an extra degree of protection.
Hey, there's more to my day than 9.84 seconds.
Donovan Bailey loves the 100. The Maple Leaf 100% all-meat frankfurter. They aren't like typical all-beef hot dogs because all beef isn't always all meats. Maple Leaf 100s are 100% all meat and seasonings only, with no fillers, byproducts, or MSG. That's why Donovan loves finishing a 100. Maple Leaf 100s, because all beef isn't always all meat.
Challenge of Champions on CBC. Brought to you by Pontiac. Pontiac, built for drivers. By Canadian Tire. By Air Canada, flying with the best. And by the new Bell, we'll earn your business.
Back live in Toronto as the celebrations continue. We heard from Donovan Bailey. Mark Lee, is there a problem with Michael Johnson?
Yes, there is, Brian. Michael Johnson just left the playing surface here at the Sky Dome. I requested an interview 3 or 4 times from him. He didn't even respond to me. He has an ice bag taped to the left leg just on the inside, high up. It appears to be a groin or a quadricep problem with his leg. I asked him if he could talk to us about the race. He didn't even respond. I was within 2 or 3 feet of the athlete. He gave me no response, and then security people pushed me out of the way as he left the stadium. One Skydome official said he doesn't want to talk to anybody.
All right, very quickly, a final word from Jeff Gowan and Don Whitman as we get off the air. Jeff, do you think Johnson was injured?
Yes, I've no reason to doubt he was injured. I think it's a little unfortunate in the heat of the moment that Donovan made the comments that he made. He probably regret it when he calms down a bit, but it perhaps indicates something of the stress that he's been under this last 2 or 3 days. He ran an excellent race. He ran the turn well. He probably lost a lot of energy on the turn and therefore lost a bit of speed on the straightaway. But I have a breakdown here. He was slightly better in his reaction time than was Michael Johnson, and he led through the 50 meters and the 100.
All right, Don and Jeff, thank you very much. That's it as we wrap it up here this afternoon. For Don Whitman, Jeff Gowan, and Mark Lee, I'm Brian Williams. Hope you enjoyed the one-to-one showdown here this afternoon. I don't agree with the description chicken, but I do agree that Donovan Bailey is indeed one classy Canadian, and once again, he has brought an entire nation to its feet. Don't forget tonight, a repeat program at 9:30. Check your local listings. So long from Skydome.
CBC Sports, home of the champions.
This is CBC.